Thank you, everybody. We're going to get started. I appreciate, and for those standing, we appreciate you being here. I am thrilled to be on this stage with my CEO, Bruce Van Saun, and Mayor Daniel Lurie, our new mayor as of November 5th. Carrie, my wife, who's also here, we've been 33-year San Francisco natives, so maybe not quite as long as you, Mayor, but we've watched this city over the years, and I don't know if I've had quite as much optimism as I have today for a couple of reasons. One is because I'm part of a great bank, but secondly, and we're investing in San Francisco, but also because of Daniel Lurie, somebody we supported and felt very lucky to be a part of his campaign and his strategy for San Francisco going forward. So thank you all for being here today. We're going to have a quick half an hour. Hopefully we'll have time for a couple questions, and we'll cover a few topics. So maybe a quick introduction, Mayor Lurie, about why you decided, after having done so much for San Francisco, you decided to take on this big role as mayor of San Francisco.
Well, well, first off, thanks for having me. It's good to see a room with a new group of people focused on investing in San Francisco. Thanks for your leadership on this, and we look forward to being a good partner to you all. It started with the fact that I was walking my kids to school in the Mission, and I couldn't explain to them what they were seeing on the streets. I come from, close to 20 years running something called Tipping Point Community of Poverty Fighting Organization in the San Francisco Bay Area, working on housing and homelessness issues, education, job training, early childhood, and yet what we were seeing on the streets is unacceptable. It still is unacceptable. This morning, I got out of my car and with the detail that I go with, tried to get somebody off the ground who was in a state that is just unacceptable for him, and it's unacceptable for our parents to be walking by those people. We got to get them off the street and into the help that they need, and I just felt like our leadership had failed here in San Francisco. And so what I'm excited about is it's a new day. We were just talking before we came on stage. We have a board of supervisors that is working collaboratively with us. We are bringing them in instead of it being an adversarial relationship, which it has been for many years now. It's one of partnership, understanding that we have one job, and that is to get results for the people of San Francisco and to stop bickering about small things and to focus on common sense, public safety, getting people off the street, and then making it easier for our small businesses and big business to thrive. And we're off to a strong start, but we've got a lot of work to do, and look forward to partnering with all of you in this room to do that.
So Bruce, why don't you talk a little bit about our investment in San Francisco and how that's grown over time?
Sure. So thanks again for being here. Much appreciated, and for everybody turning out today. We saw early on that, the obvious, that California is a really big state, really important state, and on its own it would be the 5th biggest GDP economy in the world. And so we try to figure out, how does an East Coast bank like Citizens plant a flag out here and actually start to build up a presence. And so we had some commercial banking teams here. We did a small acquisition in LA of an M&A boutique. And then the opportunity to talk to Mark back in 2021 about bringing JMP under the fold and having exposure to some great sectors of innovation around overall technology, emerging tech companies, healthcare companies, fintech companies, to plant a nice big flag and give broader capabilities around equities and equities research to the rest of Citizens. So that was really the start of it. I like to joke with Mark that his timing was impeccable, ours not so much. Since we did that deal, we haven't seen a whole lot of deal flow in terms of IPOs, but that's coming. I assume every year, this time of year, you say, this is the year. So hopefully this actually is the year. But you have to be opportunistic, and then when First Republic failed, we tried to get involved. We were invited in to bid on the whole bank. We saw that as a great opportunity for us to take on all of First Republic, but in particular the wealth and private banking expertise that they had become famous for. JP Morgan's a little bigger than us, so they won the bidding, but actually the talent didn't really fit into that JP Morgan model very well. So we were successful in securing a lot of the talent here in San Francisco and out on the peninsula, along with 3 big teams on the East Coast in Boston, New York, and Florida. And so that was another augmentation of the presence to the point now where we have over 300 people in California. And we're, I think, really well positioned to serve the innovation economy, to serve entrepreneurs, business owners, middle market companies. We really want to be the bank of choice because I don't think the big banks do it so well out here, and I think the banks that were doing it well didn't make it ultimately. So there's a void, there's some white space for somebody like Citizens to come in, bring our brand of banking, and really serve the market well.
I'll just quickly follow up, Mayor. What makes San Francisco a great place to do business?
Well, I mean, there's no more beautiful place in the world. There's no better place in terms of being the AI hub. We got Cal, we got Stanford, we have one of the great medical institutions in UCSF. We have such an educated workforce here. And when we're at our best, this is the greatest city in the world. Don't get me started on our restaurants and our museums and our cultural brand is better than anywhere else in the world. And so if we can, once again, sorry to sound like a broken record, if we can have safe streets, if we can have our behavioral health crisis under control, if we announced Permit SF, we're going to have permitting reform to make it easier for small businesses to get up and running, for housing to get built. We have to make it more affordable. So we have our challenges, but if government does its job, if we do what we know we are capable of doing with some common sense approaches, then the business world can take off. Our restaurateurs, our bars, our restaurants, our small businesses can thrive, and we can invite business back to San Francisco and say we're open for business again, which we are. That flywheel starts going, and there's no better place to be.
Well, I'll point out, within a 10-minute walk of here, some of the companies JMP's taken public over the last 20, 25 years: Uber, CrowdStrike, Snowflake, Airbnb, Workday, DocuSign, all companies we use every single day are within a 10-minute walk of here.
The Mission District, there was some Stanford study showed like 267 unicorns were created in the Mission District over the last 10 years. I mean, literally, there's no better place to start a company on the face of this planet. And so, once again, we lost some of that. We took it for granted over the last 6-7 years. I do not take it for granted. My administration does not take it for granted. People can pick up and move. We lost, Stripe and Square, not to Texas or to New York or to Florida. We lost them, 1 mile south of our border, and so we get none of those taxes. And so we have to be smarter about it, and we'll get there.
So Bruce, I'll use that tech theme about the private bank and why you chose that opportunity and why we really leaned in here at Citizens.
Sorry, say that?
Tell me about the tech economy in here, how
Oh, yeah.
we at the private bank are doing what we need to do to promote that and be part of the growth of AI and also the tech innovation hub.
Sure. So we have great relationships with all the companies. Witness the turnout today from different companies and investors. And so, I think there's a huge amount of interest in the innovation that's occurring, and it's pretty widespread. So you've got AI, you've got data management, you've got cyber, you've got cloud. I have my head of IT right here. Am I missing something? Embedded fintech that we're talking to some companies that we can embed into our offerings to our customers. And so, that really has been the driver of huge wealth creation in the region. And so we want to have services that we can serve the entrepreneur as they're seeking access to capital or liquidity events, but also to manage their affairs and structure their assets to the next generation appropriately. So there's, the effort here has been to be able to bundle all that together and take a holistic view of the customer.
Well, now that we are in new space at 101 Cal and I have the private bank right next to me, I'm seeing that every day. And the coordination with the private bank and the investment bank and a big bank like Citizens is real. What I'll also say is we're investing in the city. So I guess my question for you is, what do you need from us, and what do you think tech can do? I was here for the semiconductor revolution. I was here for the internet revolution. We've been here for the cloud revolution. Again, all within walking distance of this building. So I guess my question for you, Mayor, is how do we help promote that with the framework that you're trying to create?
Well, I would just ask all of you to be engaged, and your customers and your clients to get engaged in San Francisco's renaissance or rebirth, or whatever term you want to use. We are a city on the rise. The more you can tell people, hey, the streets are getting better. You have an administration and a board of supervisors that's focused on getting results for the people of San Francisco again. Making sure that you get engaged in our local schools, our libraries, our arts and culture institutions. Making sure that your clients know about opportunities. I mean, as simple as, joining a neighborhood cleanup on Saturday mornings. I'm doing them like once a month. We had 100 people join us, and we went up and down Van Ness Street 2 weeks ago. I know that sounds small, but it starts with doing one little thing. If each of us do our little part, the sky's the limit for our city. And so just making sure, and then the companies, I'm talking to CEOs every day about how do we get their employees and their workforce engaged in San Francisco again. In the 2010s, I talked to companies like Visa, and it became a recruitment tool that their employees could get involved in the community. It keeps you grounded in what's going on in your neighborhoods and in your communities, and that helps your workforce. So I'm going to push your CEO to do the same with all of you, and you all push that down to your clients. And then once again, it becomes a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, Bruce, I was really impressed when I joined a little over 3 years ago. It's not just lip service here at Citizen. We invest in communities, and we invest in people. And I guess maybe you could lay out a little bit about that framework.
Sure. So at Citizens, our credo is focused on what we refer to as the 3 C's. So really doing a great job for our customers, being a great place to work and build your career for colleagues, and then positively impacting the communities that we serve. Last year, we volunteered 250,000 hours as Citizens colleagues. We serve on over 1,000 nonprofit boards. We give treasure as well. We gave about $10 million to workforce development. In particular, has been something we think banks are very well suited to do in terms of convening the companies and understanding what their needs are in terms of skilled labor, and then working with community partners and government agencies to try to bring people up the economic ladder and get them the skills they need to be successful. So lots of things that we do. We're going to build that into our DNA here in California as well. I think our Champions in Action program comes to each of our markets and looks for who are the tippy top nonprofits that are making an impact in the geography. And Bay Area Creative is somebody we selected as our first partner. They're going to provide mentoring and mental health services and reach about 14,000 people in 2025. So that will be the first of many grants. And then, as you know, Mark, we also sponsor a lot of arts and different types of events that is so important to the culture of this city.
And it's true, and I can say honestly, as somebody who's experienced it, it's not just lip service. It's something we really live that credo every day. So
that's why I'm here.
That's right.
If it was just lip service, I'd be gone.
And that's really important Mayor. I mean, when I talked to Ned, and I called a couple months ago, and I just said there was no hesitation. There was no and Ned said, as like you said, what do we need to help you thrive? And I've been here 30 years. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
What I've heard is, well,
Yeah, it's a new day, Mark. It's a new day. Like, we want you here. We want all of you, and we want your customers doing well. But that the city needs to do well and it's symbiotic.
Yeah.
You know what I enjoy about your remarks too is the sense of urgency. So there's a moment in time when we got to get after it, and you've got a lot of tailwinds from the tech sector and AI and things that if you can capture those and then improve the quality of life issues, it can be very, very powerful.
We're closer to being back than most people realize.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'm going around telling you, there's a narrative out there about our city that is propagated by people that haven't been here for years and that just want to hate on our city. And I'm tired of that. The people who live and work in this city are going to be the ones that determine our future. And it's bright and it's on the rise. And you're right. There's 14 minutes, 42 seconds, and when I leave this room, we got to go rush and get back to work. Yeah.
Yeah. There's challenging times. I often say nobody goes into politics like nobody goes into banking who's a pessimist. Those are two bad jobs to be a pessimist. So we sell hope every day as a banker. And Bruce says it well, and I'll quote him here without him knowing. He says it's a noble profession. And then there's snickers and there's little giggles and all that. But no, we're taking little companies and we're making big companies. And we're endowing, making resources available. So my question with all those challenges that we both face, and I'll get to both of you, what makes you optimistic, but as well realistic about the challenges we all face? Because big cities face challenges.
Me first?
I'll start with you, Mayor.
You just have to go to one of our small restaurants and see these entrepreneurs, knowing that we just sat down with a bunch of restaurant owners. All of you, if you're from San Francisco, you've all eaten at their restaurants. And before COVID, the median profit was 6%. Now it's like 0.1%. And you still see people starting restaurants because their whole heart and soul is into it. So you can go to a place like Four Kings, like in Chinatown, and there's this great vibe. Like North Beach, I was there a couple days ago, and the vibe is good in our city, and that's what gives me hope and optimism. And then you flip it, and we have an $840 million budget deficit, and it's more like a $1.1 billion budget deficit because we're owed $260 million by FEMA for money that we spent, and I don't think we're getting that. So we have to be realistic, but you're right. I'm an optimist, and I believe that San Francisco is the greatest city in the world when we're at our best. We've been through down times before, and we've always come back, and this time will be no exception. I just want to get there quicker.
Bruce?
Yeah, I'll elevate a little bit and kind of look at the whole country and then come back to San Francisco. But the big cities have had their challenges over the last 5 or 10 years. New York is one of those cities as well. But we, as a Northeastern bank, we did not have a big presence in New York City, and we needed to solve that. So 4 years ago, we acquired 2 banks, HSBC's East Coast branches, and then also Investors Bank, to get 200 branches in New York and 1 million people there. With the expectation, as tough as the things were in New York, that these cities don't stay down forever. They have great raw material, and people step into the void, and ultimately there's course correction. So similarly, when we looked at California, huge economy, San Francisco not doing so great, but ultimately that'll settle itself out. And so there's these sine waves, things go up and things go down. If you make the investment when things are down, you just expect things will improve. So very great to see you here. Haven't totally sorted New York yet, but I think that's also going to be on the mend. We're also looked down at Florida and as another big state and a big economy, and a lot of our Northeastern customers have second homes down there, so we're making a big investment there. So we need to kind of elevate and look at who we were historically, and then where's the action across the country, where's the dynamism, and California and San Francisco, just being the innovation center of the country, is a place you can't miss. You've got to be here. So I'm optimistic that under your leadership and kind of the power of the forces that push things to self-correct, that our timing is good.
Right.
He just said you got to be here.
Yeah.
And that people say, what are your goals for 4 years? And I say, by the end of our first term, everybody around the world is going to say, you got to be in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not so sure. 4 years, they'll be saying what you're saying.
I think you have a really good point, Mayor. Most of the people who criticize have not stepped foot in San Francisco. And like you said, big cities do have problems. And even that small example, driving to work and seeing somebody and making them feel that the city cares,
Yep.
it starts with that. It starts with our
That's
communities.
right.
And it starts with our block by block and community by community. I have time for a question or two, and I did want to save a little time for that. In the back?
Yeah, Christopher Dean from Salesforce. Mr. Mayor, can you give us a quick update on police hiring and the morale in the department at this point since you've been on the ground?
Police hiring and morale, I think you'd have to ask them. I think it has really increased. We are focused on fully staffing our police department. We should be around 2,000 officers. We're below 1,500. But we did have an academy class that started in January, 55 recruits. It was the largest class in 6 years or 7 years. Now, we got to make sure that the attrition rate is stronger, so we're working on that. We got to hire faster. We got to use technology in between, because it's going to take us a few years to get back to full staffing. But here's what I will say. Our crime stats are at like 10, 15, 20-year lows right now. We are doing well. It is the feeling of safety that we have to attack, and that's where the behavioral health crisis comes in. We have to get people off the streets and into more mental health and drug treatment beds. We just passed this fentanyl state of emergency ordinance, a 10-to-1 vote, by the way, that allows us to go stand up 1,500 shelter beds, more mental health, more drug treatment beds, hire police officers and first responders more quickly. I think the morale has vastly improved over the last couple months, and we're focused on making sure that we allow police to do their job, always with police oversight, but we want to enforce the law, and if you are dealing drugs in this city, we are coming after you. And if you are using drugs, we're not going to allow you to use drugs on our streets anymore. We're going to get you the help that you need and get you into mental health and drug treatment beds. We have a long way to go on police recruitment, but we're off to a good start, but it's going to take us some time.
Question, please.
So on the topic of sense of urgency, how much control does the mayor have versus the board of supervisors? What is in your control to do quickly versus having to work within?
So it's a great question. I got this on the campaign. There was a lot of people that said, oh, the Board of Supervisors have all the power. I was never one that believed that. This is a strong mayor system. The power has been chipped away over the last 20 years for sure. But this is why I walked in. There's 11 supervisors or 11 city council people here in San Francisco. And I stated from the beginning that I wanted to work with all 11. I didn't want to just try to get 6-5 votes. And so I asked for more power around the fentanyl state of emergency issue, and we got 10-to-1. Unusual. We just had a new bill that was passed to convert office space into residential. We got a 9-2 vote to make it easier to do that. So we've changed the narrative in terms of how we work with them. But the mayor has power. I'm going to lean into it. The supervisors have oversight, and we have 130 commissions, and we got to get commission reform under control, or we have to have commission reform. But you're not going to hear me 2 or 3 years from now saying, oh, the supervisors, you all can point the finger at me. But I'm going to have a good working relationship with the supervisors, the first time you've seen that in 6 years.
And I don't remember a lot of 10-1, 9-2s in the last number of years in San Francisco.
It hasn't.
Sky is blue would have been 6-5.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it is a new day.
Yeah. I got time for one more question, if anybody has a question. If not, I'll...
Shy group.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have one more question, then I'll leave you some time to say. We hear a lot about AI. You've had a lot of people in the AI world support you, and they've been very supportive of back to work, back in office. Can you talk a little bit about, again, we saw the semiconductor revolution, we saw the software revolution, we saw the internet right here. Tell me a little bit about how you think about that and how you think about that, how that helps San Francisco.
Well, actually, the AI companies have been back to work. Whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI or Salesforce, I mean, they are either in 4 or 5 days a week. We just came out with a back to office requirement of 4 days a week that will be instituted in April. To be fair to our great City Hall employees and departments who work tirelessly each and every day, we have 32,000 employees. 70% of them are in 5 days a week. So let's have that out there. But the other 8 to 10,000 are back 1, 2, maybe 3 days a week. So we're upping that to 4. We're in talks with all of them. I think it's important for us to have, forward-facing people at government delivering services to people. I'm not talking about, I don't think it's my job to impose that on the private sector. You all get to make those decisions, but I believe that we need to lead by example, and that was the reasoning behind the return to work policy.
And Bruce, you spent a lot of time, I know you're coming back with Michael, but can you talk a little bit about our investment in technology and our investment in AI and how we see that changing our bank?
Yeah, so it's very exciting, and people say, wonder, is it overhyped or is it real? I certainly think it's real. The potential to be game-changing in terms of how work is organized and how productive your colleague base can be. So I think, though, in a heavily regulated space like banks, it's a little bit kind of walk before you run and make sure that you're kind of got the right governance and oversight on this. But we've already, last year, we had 3 very powerful use cases that have yielded some real benefits, and I think we're gonna push that up to about 10 more this year. We've got really good data organization, and we've got a team that's working with the businesses to prioritize the things that'll have the biggest impact. Beyond that, we're trying to push out licenses like Copilot to the kind of broader companies so people can start to get familiar with the tools and start to benefit in their daily kind of work life. So anyway, it's very exciting, and I think, again, a lot of the companies now that are here at this conference are involved in that whole effort in helping to organize data. There's lots of subsectors within the big AI umbrella that companies can kind of find their niches and really grow very successful companies.
Please.
Mayor, how would you like the tech community to engage with you?
How would I like the tech community to engage with us? This is a good start. We have, roundtables. We want to know what, our employers need in terms of clean streets, safety and security, public transportation. Muni is a huge issue in terms of we have a huge budget deficit with Muni. We need to get that under control because we need all of these companies to be able to have their workforce move efficiently on public transit. And call us. We are open. I would give out my cell phone number. This is a big group. But we are very easy to get a hold of. He knows how to get a hold of me anytime. And we want feedback. We want open lines of communication. If there's an issue that a company is facing, we want to hear about it. And so don't hesitate to pick up the phone. We got members of my team here. We want you to know that San Francisco is open for business, and that means that you all can get in touch with us, and we're open.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
So I think we've heard a lot, Mayor, and I appreciate about why San Francisco. I'm going to close with Bruce, and I spend every day thinking about why citizens in California and why citizens in San Francisco, but I'd love to hear from you, Bruce, about that and about what we're building and trying to build something special out here.
Yeah, well, thanks for going to me last, but again, the caliber of people that we have here, the entrepreneurialism from our JMP folks and from our private bankers matches the whole dynamism in the California economy. So I just think we're doing it in a really joined up way where we can provide total solutions for folks with the best caliber folks, and we're still working on some of the build out of the white glove service levels and things that First Republic spent years perfecting, but I think we're making good progress on that. And so if you have the talent and you're committed, I think we're going to meet success and help push this economy and benefit from it.
And I'll let you close. I say it all the time. Americans love to kind of hit hard on things that are going wrong, but nothing America loves more than a resurrection story.
Absolutely.
Nothing more.
No.
And talk about that.
No, everybody, around the world, people love San Francisco and they want it to succeed. And so let's start with that. And then we're going to do the basics on our end. And I'm telling you, San Francisco is on the rise. There's no better place to do business. And I look forward to working with all of you and your clients and your customers because we're coming back.
Thank you both. This is great. Thank you all.
Thank you.